The one story I have about elk and everything was my dad told it as a kid. Everyone asks how the populations have changed, how things have changed with the elk. I remember my dad telling us, like growing up in Cranbrook, it used to make the radio. The elk would come down on migration, come down through the St. Mary's Flats, and people would actually drive from Cranbrook out to Kimberley to see elk. It was like all of Cranbrook would drive out to see the migrating elk coming through. And now you listen to the radio every morning and Dennis Walker's on the radio saying all the places to watch out for elk because they're out everywhere, right? Because there's herds all over the highway. So when everyone asked me how things have changed, I was like, it's a perfect example of how the population, the densities have just grown down here in the trench, because it used to be an event to see an elk around here. So, and growing up here, I would say 50 years ago, nobody had elk fences. Nobody had their stackyards fenced. There was never any pressures from elk to where we've gotten to now. My parents have elk fenced, and with the situation we're currently in, I don't see how anyone can survive without them. There's just so much pressure from them right now. So, government's responsible for managing their elk. It's a provincial responsibility. The conflict I've seen with working with the different divisions of government is that, like, Ministry of Agriculture is who funds our compensation program, because they're trying to support us as agricultural because they understand of our losses. But then recently we've been included in the elk plan that's put on by Walrus. And in those conversations, they want to increase the population, increase this, reduce hunting. They all have plans of building the herd larger, which us as an industry, we're not opposed to the population, we're opposed to the densities on our fields and in the trench. And so until wildlife can figure out a way to get the elk populations back into the mountains and into their natural habitat where they migrate, the ranching community is in dire distress, because we don't know how we're going to manage and continue to raise their elk population to their numbers and try to feed humans, like with beef. Yeah.
My name is Jamie Jones, and we live down on the river, and we have a large ranch, and we have a huge elk problem. So our place is a little unique. The railroad tracks runs down the middle of it. The river side of the railroad tracks is where all the irrigated ground is, almost 400 acres, and then there's 400 acres on the other side of the railroad tracks and the main Fenwick Road. So the elk are coming and going, but they swim the river, crawl through our elk fence. There's a lot of pressure from the river, a lot of pressure from the railroad tracks, a lot of pressure from the roads. So the elk just kind of get into that area and feel like they're safe. And there's a lot of feed there. Spring and fall, the elk are calving in the fields now, and they never used to do that. They were gone. So we've been on the city project. My husband's there probably been 45 years. I've been involved 36 years. The elk numbers used to be 75 to 100 head. We're up close to 800 to 1,000. But we're seeing that the elk herd is probably increasing 15 to 20% every year. We have cages out. We're keeping track for the last year just to look at damages. Straight across the board, 60%'s gone. And some fields are way more than others. I've been here many years around, and we have cohabited with the elk for many years, but it seems that the numbers are increasing rapidly. I think there's many, many different reasons, that it's not just one reason, and we can't blame one specific thing. But over the years, people have bought up ranches. They don't keep them feed on the ranches anymore, maybe a little bit of dry grass that their horses eat. The other thing, I think the elk moved to the valley floor, and they calved in the valley floor, and they don't maybe know where to go. They need to be pushed back into the mountains. Unfortunately, there's not as much irrigated property as there used to be. We've also taken some ranches, farms out of the elk's habitat because we fenced them. Ranchers were trying to make a living. And we were getting to the point when there was 15,000, 20,000 elk years ago in the 80s. that we weren't making a living. So one of the choices was to fence or to live with it, and a lot of people ended up selling their places because of it. People found that this valley's beautiful. It's a wonderful valley. People have bought up the valley and not kept their places under production, which means that they would irrigate, cut the grass. Elk seem to follow the cows. If you graze it off and it grows back, the elk like the grass better. So do our cows.